right? It just makes you want to fist pump the air, sing out loud, and hop on a motorcycle. So probably a lot of you are wondering, what the heck? This doesn't seem like a session that belongs in a benefits conference. But I'm going to ask you all to trust me, because by the end of this talk, hopefully it will all make sense. So I'm going to start off by asking everybody to close your eyes for a minute. Let's see if I can do this. Close your eyes. Trust me, nothing strange is going to happen. And I want you to think about a time in your life when you felt a true sense of accomplishment and joy, because you worked really hard to accomplish something and you could feel it. So I'm going to give you a couple examples just to kind of get your mind in the right direction. So imagine if you hiked to the top of a mountain and you got to sit down and enjoy the view. Or possibly you ran your first 5K. You crossed the finish line and the person puts that finisher's medal around your neck. Or maybe you watched your child graduate from high school or college and you saw them walking across the stage to get their diploma. Or it could even be something like a painting you've been working on for a really long time and you finally finished it and got to sign your name. Okay, so keep your eyes closed for a minute. Now I want you to think about everything it took for you to get there. First of all, what made you want to start in the first place? Or what tools or gear did you need along the way? Sorry about that. What people did you need to help you get there? So go ahead and open your eyes. See, I promise there was nothing weird happening. And does anybody have an example of a moment in your life when you felt that? Just shout it out if you have an example.
Finish the book.
Okay, good. I was gonna okay, so apparently no one's ever accomplished anything, and I know if you're sitting in this room, you have. So we know that that is for real. So clearly, there is a motorcycle in this story. And if you look at that picture, you can see that, yes, that is me. Obviously a little less experienced than I am today, but I am sitting on my very own Harley Davidson. But my story does not start on that bike. My story started back sitting in my living room on a couch with my husband, and we happened to be flipping through the channels and ran across a Discovery Channel documentary about Harley Davidson's brand new motorcycle, the V-Rod. He immediately fell in love with that bike and was determined that we should have one. So he began campaigning me that, this was something that we needed to have in our life. And he didn't have to twist my arm that hard, because I already have a little bit of a speed demon streak in me anyway, and I like anything that goes fast. So before you know it, we're headed to the dealership to go order the bike. Takes about a month or two, and finally the bike shows up, and we're excited to go for a ride. Because this was something that we were going to be able to do together as a couple, just he and I, away from kids and family and friends, just something special. So we hop on the bike, he's the driver and I'm the passenger, and it was great. Well, maybe not so much for me. It took exactly 2 rides for me to figure out that the passenger seat was not where I wanted to be.
Amen.
So, if you know me at all, you can probably guess what prompted all of that. And it was the need for control. I wanted to control my experience. I wanted to control what it felt like to be on that bike. So, off to the dealership we went again. And this is where my story really begins, because this is the story of a girl who wanted to move from the passenger seat to the driver's seat. She wanted to do more and be more, but she really wasn't sure how to start. So we get this bike, and I loved it. I picked out all the details, from the translucent pink flames on the tank that formed a heart at the very front, to the wonderful seat that I had that even had a little back, made me feel secure and comfortable on the bike. And if you look closely, you can see those are even hearts in the wheels. So the bike was all good. So I've got the, sorry, got the bike, I'm ready to go, and I have ridden motorcycles and ATVs my entire life. From the time I was 5 or 6 years old, we started off, I had a Honda mini dirt bike and moved up to bigger bikes. And then when we were first married, we had quads as well. So I'm thinking this is gonna be a piece of cake. No, it's definitely not. Because first of all of my riding had been done off-road or in the dirt. So now I have this new bike. It's heavy, it's pretty, and it's expensive. So my husband, being the voice of reason, says, we need to enroll in the motorcycle safety class. Okay, seems like a good idea. Plus, you know, just minor detail, you needed that motorcycle endorsement to be able to legally ride on the road. So, okay, got the bike, I'm signed up for the class. Why am I so scared? Well, I was afraid of failing. I was afraid of looking stupid. But I've got my husband with me, and I know that it's gonna be okay. So before you know it, walking through the door to that classroom, and I look around, and there's 20 or so other wannabe riders in the classroom as well, and I see the look on their face. They think they don't really need to be there, except that they need that endorsement. So they're gonna show up and put in the time. There was a little part of me that probably felt the same way. Because, kind of going back to Jessica's talk, I suffer from a little bit of what I like to call the know-it-all syndrome. And it tends to rear its ugly head when I'm nervous or unsure of myself. So I'll either pretend I already know what everyone's talking about, or I will zip it and not say a word. So there we are in the class. And it turns out I was really in for a very big surprise, because learning the basic rules of the road was actually the easy part. Where things got interesting for me was the second weekend, and we had to get on the bikes. Well, I very quickly learned the value of a coach or an instructor, because they had to have a lot of patience with me as I was figuring this all out. But before you knew it, I did it. I went from being absolutely terrible to being kind of okay. At least okay enough to get my endorsement. So I walk out of that classroom, I've got my coveted endorsement, and I am ready to ride. I am suited up, and we're going for a ride. And because I knew this could potentially happen, I did bring my notes up here just in case. So, one of the things that I learned, and this was actually one of the most important lessons I learned from riding a motorcycle, is I learned that focus is crucial. When you're on a motorcycle and you're riding with other larger, heavier vehicles around you on the road at 50 plus, sometimes plus miles per hour going down the freeway, you have to be 100% present at all times. Because it's the difference between staying on your bike and ending up in a ditch. This actually turned out to be one of my favorite parts of riding, because I have a lot of clutter in my brain. I mean, seriously, people, there is a hamster wheel going 24/7 in my noggin, and anytime the hamsters get off for a little break, it is a good day for me. So focus was incredibly important. I also learned the value of it, and see, I'm terrible with the slides, so we'll catch up here. I also learned the value of my peers and community. Because when I got out of that classroom, even though I had that endorsement, I was just dangerous. I mean, basically that's what I was. I had to find other people that had ridden longer than I was and that could come alongside me and teach me those little tips and tricks that you are never going to find in a book or a classroom. I also learned the value of the right gear. If you ride, you know the importance of safety gear. And I'm not gonna lie, when I was all suited up in my leathers, I felt good. And it protected me in the event that I did go down, because I went down a couple times. I also chose to wear a full face helmet because I like the extra anonymity it gave me. And for anybody that has ever ridden a motorcycle, if you've ever been hit in the face by a bug at 50 miles an hour, it is no fun. So the helmet's a good idea. And here's another thing that I learned. I learned the importance of looking through the corners. When you're on a motorcycle, you need to pay attention to where you are, but you also need to be looking at where you're going. You need to be picturing that path, having that line of sight of where you're headed, and not focused on what's behind you. Because if you're on a bike and you're turning around to look what's behind you, guess what's probably gonna happen? You're gonna go down. So, I've talked a lot about me and riding a motorcycle, but again, why am I talking about that? What I want to talk about today is you. What about you? What is your ride or die? Because to me, I think everybody in this room wants to ride into their vision of what their career, what their life should look like. And if you don't pursue it, there's a piece of you and your dreams that dies. So what is it? Everybody in this room are innovators. You are here because you want to do things differently. You want more for your life. You want more for your career. You want more for your business. You want more for your clients and the members of your employers that you work with. But you know, the second that you start to do things differently, there's risk, but there's also reward. The risk is you need to learn how to study the contracts. You need to learn how to get a business off the ground. You need to maybe leave a book of business behind to start with a new agency. You need to look for those gaps and that liability. But there's also reward. The reward is you're happier, your career is going better, your agency's more successful, your clients are saving money, and the members are getting better care at a better price. So, okay, you see the risk and the reward. Where are you ready to fall on that teeter-totter? So again, I ask everybody in this room, what is it that you want? Because it all starts with desire. I can tell you from personal experience that learning to ride a motorcycle was a lot easier than starting and running an agency. When I was getting ready to start my agency, it wasn't something I was planning on. I was already an owner in an agency, but I was told that I had to move from that driver's seat back to the passenger seat. They wanted to take away my ownership stake and put me back to being a support position because I was a woman. This is 26 years ago, people, and sometimes it's not that different. But I knew I had to do something because if I didn't, I was not going to be happy. I really love this quote. If you really want to do something, no one can stop you. But if you really don't want to do something, no one can help you. And that's really the crux of it. If you want it, you need to find a way to pursue it. So, in my story, I think that there's a lot of similarities between learning to ride a motorcycle and learning and starting an agency. And any of these things can be applied to almost anything in your life that you want to do as well. So I have a 5-step process for riding into your own vision of what it is that you see for yourself. And the first one is to find a coach, an instructor, or a peer group. You guys are here for a reason, because events like this help you define what it is that you want and who it is that you need in your life to help move you along. You need to find those people. You need to find your community. Step number 2 is to find the right gear or tools. On a motorcycle, that was my safety gear that I wore, as well as other things that I brought with me to keep myself both comfortable and safe. When I was starting my agency, I needed computers and software and furniture. Every situation is going to be different. You're going to figure out that you need different things, but figure out what you need before you get started, so you have an idea of what you need and when you're going to need it. Step number 2 is control. And I really like this one because in an industry where a lot of things are out of our control, we need to be prepared to think about what we're going to do in the event that something comes up. You can't control an unexpected large cancer claim on a self-funded plan any more than you can control bad drivers on the road. So what are you going to do about it? Do you have a plan? Or are you going to wait till it blows up and then try to figure it out? It's not going to work that well. So be thinking ahead of how you can control the things that are controllable and how you can be prepared for those that are not. Step number 4, look through the corners. Again, I really like this analogy, and it's something that has stuck with me since the day I learned to ride a motorcycle. So again, thinking about your business, what are you going to do if, for instance, your client ends up with a 20% renewal rate increase? Are you going to slash benefits without thinking about the consequences, the long-term consequences? Or are you going to look ahead and see what's in front of you and how do we get from where we are now to where we're going? Again, what about that, what if you lose a client? A big client, maybe it's your biggest client. And you lost them for no fault of your own. They were either acquired or they went out of business or something happened. Are you immediately going to let staff go and because you were so worried about the bottom line? Or are you going to look through that problem, look through that corner and figure out if you can find a way to get from where you are now to where you need to be? Again, focus not only where you're at, but where you're going. And here's another tip. This is a great one. I don't know how many people here have ever ridden a motorcycle, but one of the things that you learn is if you're stopped at an intersection, you pay attention to the tires on the car across the intersection because they're going to show movement before the vehicle actually does. And by paying attention to that, again, that can be a life or death difference. So here's what I take away from all of this with both riding a motorcycle, running an agency, building an innovative health plan. You need to find the right coach. You need to find your right community. You need to get your tools in place. You need to control the things that can be controlled. And always, and I do mean always, be sure to look through the corners. Thank you.